Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So we're coming back to Bystial Branded Despia. I am testing a post-ban list here, even though at the time of recording this, as you can see, Branded Fusion is still very much at 3. That is not going to be the case here in a couple of days at the time of recording this, but the day that this goes out should be, I think, the first day of the new season if I have things timed correctly. So, wanted to make sure that the list that I'm putting out is relevant to when it's coming out. And as always, I like to test lists, post-ban list even before the new ban list drops, just to get a feel for the ratios and whatnot. The loss of one Branded Fusion definitely does not impact this deck too much at all. The deck still has a million ways to search the card out, and also ways to make plays beyond that. So I think in a lot of ways that this deck just remains completely unchanged. But of course, the slight consistency hit, in addition to other slight consistency hits the deck has had before, will definitely kind of like make an overall less consistent game plan. But again, I don't think that makes Bystial Branded Despia any worse of a deck than it was beforehand. So as you can see, I did manage to trim the list down to 40 cards here. One of the main things I ended up cutting, I think this was in my last build, but you might notice that I'm not playing Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Funnily enough, I mentioned on my tier list, of tech cards in the last, yesterday, I think, the last video, that this, Ash Blossom is a card you should play everywhere. And honestly, Branded Despia has traditionally been a deck that's fine being above 40 cards. So, like, I could just play 3 Ash Blossoms and play 43 cards if I really wanted to, and I think that would be fine. But, again, with Branded Fusion going down to 2, I just wanted to keep the deck down to 40, just to make it as consistent as possible, just to make sure I'm still not missing out on the combo pieces if possible. Well, combo pieces. We all know which one is the most important one, right? And if you don't know, for whatever reason, Branded Fusion is absolutely the most important card of this deck. And if you're wondering when to use your Ash Blossom, always hold it for Branded Fusion. As far as the Imperm goes, I definitely recommend utilizing that against something like Albion or Lubellion that's coming down and making another fusion monster. So a lot of times you can Imperm the Albion and your opponent will probably just be done after that. So yeah, those are a lot of the choke points there. I do really still like the Double Mercourier. It's technically not 100% needed, but it's super duper good. It makes certain combo lines easier and more consistent, but it also allows you to use Mercourier as a material for a fusion, and then also later search one that can come up sometimes. Often enough that I do think it is worth it to have the second copy there. Still jamming the 3 Super Poly. This card is absolutely insane in this deck and in this meta in general, especially, of course, now that Garura is out. Branded in white, I feel like there was a comment last time that was like, why are you running this card? It's not good. It's actually good for a certain combo line we're going to be seeing here coming up in the video. So, like, might seem weird to suddenly be playing this, like, seemingly mediocre Branded card that wasn't used before, but Cartesia in particular opens up a new combo line that allows, I think it's Cartesia, opens up a new combo line that will allow you to utilize Branded in white. Honestly, I gotta be fully honest with you all. This is definitely the deck I am personally, like, one of the meta decks I'm personally least confident in playing on the channel. Like, I think I'm an okay, like, a tolerable Branded Despia player, but, like, this deck feels very, like, much too big brain for me a lot of the time, just because there's a lot of moving pieces with it, right? Like, every single card has multiple effects. Well, not every single card, not like Fusion Deployment, but every single, like, Branded Despia or Bystial card has, like, multiple effects, and they're, like, all relevant in different situations, and it's a lot. Like, it feels like a lot of the time. So you might not see 100% optimal plays with this deck all the time, but I just want to let you all know that I am not claiming to be an expert. It's funny because I'll see comments on Branded Despia deck profiles, which, I mean, I see comments like this for, like, every deck, and it means a lot when people are like, oh, Lex is so good at this deck, or like, oh, Lex is a master, and I'm like, when this deck in particular, Branded Despia, I'm like, no. like that's not just imposter syndrome talking. I am definitely, there are much better Branded Despia players out there than me, but I think, again, I'm passable enough. I can at least show you some of the more basic combo lines here, again, in some of these duels coming up. So let's go ahead and, actually, let me think, is there anything else I wanted to cover with the deck list itself? With the extra deck, I was kind of thinking about potentially running either Vert Anaconda and or Star Venom. Two very different cards, but the Vert Anaconda can, potentially turn a kind of dead board into at least something that can drop a Branded Fusion. The Star Venom is a pretty good Super Poly target. I think if I was going to cut a card for one of those, it would probably just be Mudragon of the Swamp. But at the same time, if I was going to cut Mudragon, I'd want to cut, I think, one of the Super Polys. Just because with 3 Super Poly, I want at least two very generic targets for it. That's why I play both Mudragon and Garura. But ultimately, if you're not playing 3 Super Poly, I don't think you necessarily need both. I think you can then get away with playing something like Vert. Or, the Starving Venom is just an alternate Super Poly target. But I like the Mudragon a little bit more as one. It just covers more decks. So, alright, now I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to as far as the list itself goes. So let's go ahead and break it down card by card, and then we will look at some gameplay. So we're on 1 Despain Tragedy, 3 Maxx, 2 Fallen of Albaz, 2 Aluber, the Jester of Despia, 2 Tri-Brigade Mercourier, 1 Springans Kitt, 2 Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous, 1 Bystial Magnamhut, 2 Bystial Saronir, 1 Bystial Druiswarm, 1 Bystial Baldrake, 1 Albion the Shrouded Dragon, 1 Ad Libitum of Despia, 1 the Bystial Lubellion, 3 Fusion Deployment, 1 Branded in White, 2 Branded Fusion, 1 Branded Lost, 1 Branded Regained, 3 Super Poly, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Branded Opening, 1 Branded in Red, 1 Branded Banishment, 1 Branded Retribution, and then 1 Branded Beast. It's going to be our 40-card main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Mudragon of the Swamp, 1 Garura Wings of Restorant Life, 1 Predaplant Dragostepelia, 1 Brigand the Glory Dragon, 2 Albion the Branded Dragon, 1 Despian Quaretits, 1 Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, 2 Mirrorjade the Iceblade Dragon, 1 Lubellion the Searing Dragon, 1 Grangnol the Dusk Dragon, 1 Rindabrum the Striking Dragon, 1 Guardian Chimera, and then 1 Despian Proskinian. There is our list. Now let's look at some games. For our first duel, we're going to find ourselves squaring up against Branded Tearlaments. And I think it's either this game or the next one that is kind of going to show off a pretty ideal turn 1. Okay, so this hand actually has a lot of potential to it. It's got a Branded Fusion, so that's already enough right there, right? No, it is the next game, I think, that's going to show a more detailed combo line. But here, if you open just Branded Fusion, that's obviously still fine. I'm going to set up the Albion line here, so I'm going to send Lubellion and Albaz for, of course, Albion the Branded Dragon. Opponent's going to reveal a Havness. I'm going to chain the Maxx to see if I can get some more resources off of that. Opponent's going to throw down a Druiswarm in response. So they will get to banish the Albaz out of my graveyard, but that's ultimately fine. Albaz is a very good target to hit off of a Bystial as well. Alright, so if this Maxx will go away here. Okay, so our opponent hit Kalbeck and Mudora, and I believe actually... Okay, they are going to proc the Kalbeck. I couldn't remember if the point of priority had passed already, but... Oh yeah, this is where the interaction is weird, right? So they're going to activate the Kalbeck, but when I use the Call By on it, they don't chain the Mudora. I was very much expecting the Mudora chain here, and I was like, I can at least use Call By to keep Mudora out of the graveyard. Maybe they'll whiff, maybe I'll hit a Despain Tragedy. I think, I still have a normal summon, so that would be really good. I can summon Aluber, potentially grab either Branded in White or Red or something. We'll figure it out, but no, they actually just let the Kalbeck get Call By'd, and I'm like, that is 100% fine. I am so okay with that. You can absolutely let that resolve. So I'll use Granule just to send an Albion from deck to graveyard. Opponent's actually saving their Mudora to counter my Albion. I don't think that was right. I think, I definitely respect wanting to use Mudora to stop me from getting the search there. That's not, bad in and of itself. But when the alternative was to use Mudora on your own Kalbeck and then get a Mill 5, which very likely would have gotten you plays that I very likely wouldn't have been able to keep up with, I think that was generally more worth it. Again, I guess on my end, they could have hit the 1-of Despian Tragedy. There's not really many cards that they can actually mill for me that would actually proactively want in the graveyard right now. So, I think my opponent misplayed a little bit ultimately. So they're going to start with the Heartbeat targeting the Super Poly. I'm actually going to chain it, not even just to fuse here, but more honestly over to make sure that they don't send a card from their hand to the graveyard. I very much suspect they want to send a fuser. As far as what I'm fusing here, that's a very loaded question, because I actually have a ton of options right now. I can make Mudragon, I can make Garura, but what ultimately I'm going to do is, that if I recall correctly, I fuse Albion and Havness to make Dragostepelia here. Yep, that's exactly what it is, because this will... Here's the thing, right? I know I played around the heartbeat in case they had a fuser, but if they don't have a fuser, this is really good, because now they don't get to have this effect, and they also don't have the ability to, honestly, probably really recover after that. But moreover, even if they have the fuser here and go for a kick close, now I can negate it and stop them from getting the search or the like sack itself to banish effect. So opponent is going to proc Havness, but is not using it to make a kick close. They're going to fuse it with the Druiswarm on board in order to make a Mudragon of the Swamp. I guess they really wanted to get the Druiswarm effect, but you know, I can just use my what is it? My, oh my god, words. Why can't I think of it? The card I just played, Granganol, Jesus Christ. I can use my Granganol to get Despian Proscinian. I did misplay by putting it in defense mode. I should have realized my opponent made Mudragon that they're going to try to go for a Zeus line here. If I put the Proscinian in attack mode, then I would have been able to, you know, they wouldn't have been able to battle on either of my monsters without their Xyz monster getting destroyed. It's just kind of autopilot. I'm used to playing around Scream, which can drop the Proscinian below 3,000, where I can get run over by Roll Close. So here's the thing, though. My opponent is going to get to Zeus, but because I have this Dragostepelia on board, they actually can't really use it, because, and yeah, they just ultimately concede when I grab the Branded Fusion. And that might look really weird on the surface. It's like, wait, your opponent just went out of their way to make Zeus. They successfully did it, and they conceded. But yeah, because I have Dragostepelia in play, and they only get one Zeus activation because they have 3 materials, I can just wait. I don't have to preemptively use Dragostepelia. I can just wait for them to activate Zeus. Then once they do, I change Dragostepelia, Zeus is negated, and they lose. So they just ultimately decide to concede and to speed up the process a little bit. But that was more of a, you know, only open Branded Fusion and got interrupted kind of a hand. But let's show a more ideal situation where we actually get to just completely go off with multiple combo pieces uninterrupted. Okay, so for this duel here, we're going to be up against Exosisters, and this is the game I was referring to where we're going to end up having a bit more of an involved turn 1 hand. So here, as you can see, we opened more than just Branded Fusion. We also opened Aluber, and just opening that one additional search is going to add a lot to our end board. So because we already have Branded Fusion, I'm going to use Aluber to get the Branded Lost. Now Branded Fusion is going to come down. This time we're not doing the Albion line, we're going to do the Rindabrum line. The Rindabrum line is, of course, where you summon Rindabrum using the Albaz and the Tri-Brigade Mercourier as the pieces that you're fusing with here. So Branded Lost will add the Springans Kitt. Springans Kitt's effect activates to special summon herself. She's going to add Branded in White. This is where Branded in White comes in, and we'll put back the extra Albaz. Branded in White is going to banish the Mercourier and the Albaz out of my graveyard, and that will allow me to special the Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. Now I get to use Lubellion's effect. I'll pitch this Branded Retribution, and I get the Mercourier Search as well. Mercourier is going to grab Albion, the Shrouded Dragon, and then Lubellion is going to fuse with the Albaz in order to make the Mirrorjade. Alright, now we'll get our 1 draw off of Albion. I'll set up a Branded in red in my graveyard, and we actually got an extremely relevant card in Fusion Deployment. We're going to make more use of that here as well. So I'm going to be activating my Mirrorjade's effect and then negating with Rindabrum. That might seem really weird. It might seem like, well, wait, isn't that kind of a waste of your Mirrorjade? Like, yeah, you get to set up the Albion in the graveyard, but you've already used the effect. Here's the thing, though. The effect, the part of the effect that says you cannot use this effect next turn is part of the resolution of banishing a monster. Rindabrum negates that effect, so Rindabrum negates the Mirrorjade's effect, including the part that says you cannot use this effect next turn. So I actually still get to banish a monster during my opponent's turn. The other cool thing about Rindabrum is that when you negate, you also get to bounce a card, so I'm going to bounce the Aluber back to my hand for follow-up on the next turn. I'm going to get back my Branded in red here, and then now I also get to use my Fusion Deployment to grab a Cartesia. Now I get to use Cartesia with the leftover Springans Kitt in order to make myself a Granganol. Granganol's effect will send the Albion, I'll set a card, now I'll get the Albion search, I'll set up a Branded Banishment, and I'll get the Brigade search as well to search for a Tri-Brigade Mercourier. Oh, and then Cartesia grabs itself back as well. So that was definitely a phenomenal turn 1 board. The Granganol and the Cartesia, that whole line was because I happened to draw the fusion deployment, but even without that, this sets up a Rindbrum, this sets up a Mirrorjade, it sets up one of the back rows, and because we use the Brigand, we also have the ability to get a second Mercourier. This is why I like playing 2 Mercouriers for this combo line specifically. And just to kind of throw salt on the wound, I'm just going to max see my opponent during the draw phase as well. They do have a cross-side designator at the least, so we do actually get to play, well, some amount of Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. My board will definitely ensure that not too much is going to get played, though. Let's go start with Exorcist or Martha. I am going to Mercourier that because I am not letting that resolve. No way, no how. Martha is definitely, I think, the strongest main deck Exorcist or monster, so that's definitely getting stopped. Opponent's going to follow up with a triple attack, ultimately opting to draw 2 cards here before just conceding. So, yeah, it turns out the turn 1 board was just a little too strong here, and my opponent was not able to push through my established setup. And we, of course, also had Branded in red for a potential Guardian Chimera line. I guess Branded Banishment could have also made Guardian Chimera, but could have also fused, like, if they summon 2 Exorcisters, we can use Branded Banishment. Oh, no, we can't make Garura with it because it's not level 8 or higher, but we could have made something, I'm sure. I don't know. We do still have a couple more games to watch. Let's go into the next one here. All right, here we're going to find ourselves up against Sword Soul. So it's actually been a minute since I've played against Sword Soul, or with it for that matter. Definitely going to need to get around to that for a Season 19 deck profile at some point. Alright, so our opponent gets to go first here, and unfortunately we didn't open any disruption. This is the one thing about this list I don't really like is it's sometimes pretty rough going second, because again, we're not playing Ash Blossoms or Imperms either, actually. Our really only forms of disruption that we can open are Maxx and like Bystials, and that's like kind of weak. So again, that's like the one thing about this list I'm not thrilled about. But it's going to drop a Protoss and call Dark alongside a Baron. I don't think I need to tell you why that is a bit of an issue for us to have, not rather have the ability to special summon any Dark monsters, but we'll still try to persevere all the same. I do get to use Fusion Deployment for our Cartesia here. Cartesia effect will activate. I'm mostly just trying to force out the Baron because I can actually still normal summon this Albaz and make plays with it. And we do manage to draw out the Baron negate, so normal Albaz, pitch the Retribution. I'm going to fuse Albaz away with the Protoss in order to summon a Lubellion. Lubellion's effect will activate next. I'll pitch my extra Cartesia and fuse it with her in order to summon the Granganol. Right now, Granganol's effect is going to activate. I'll send an Albion. I'm going to set the Branded Beast and then activate Branded Retribution to get back my Branded opening. I actually probably could have sent a better spell or trap card for my deck to the graveyard, like that Branded in red. Like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I could have set up both Branded in red and Branded Banishment here, which would have been a lot better. Probably would have made a huge difference, actually. Alright, so I'm going to chain the Branded opening here because the Branded opening can actually potentially protect the Granganol here. The effect to, like, banish it instead of destroying happens, I believe, upon resolution and not on activation, so if I recall correctly, this should work. But I'm going to use my Branded in red just to set up a Guardian Chimera here. Oh, so actually the target is gone, so I actually don't even need the, what is it, the Branded opening effect. Although I think that would have worked the way I described it. Gonna Guardian Chimera for 2. It's another Albaz and Cartesia. It's definitely not what I would have preferred to see. Like, I definitely just lost all of my fusion deployment targets. And this Branded opening definitely gets a lot weaker as well. Gonna once again summon the Albaz in response to my opponent's second Protoss. Definitely like 2 Protoss in Sword Soul right now. I'm gonna summon another Lubellion, but because I'm Dark Locked again, I'm actually not gonna activate the effects because I can't really make anything like meaningful anyway. So I'll make it in attack mode, smack my opponent for a lot, putting them down to 700, and then they're gonna follow up with an evenly. I'll leave a Guardian Chimera on the board before passing back over to my opponent. Opponent's going to draw and rip an Emergence off the top of their deck. Wowie, wow, wow, wow. That's pretty good. They're going to use that Emergence to go for a Taya here. Taya is going to banish the Emergence to grab a Sword Soul token. And they're actually going to adjust the level down in order to make the Yazi, Evil of the Yang Zing. It's really too bad I don't have a Vanilla Poly in my graveyard. Would be very good right now, but alas. I can at least prevent destruction with Branded Opening, but that won't stop Yaz's effect from triggering here. And as you can see, my opponent's actually playing a bit of a Yang Zing package in their Sword Soul deck here. So they get the special Ashina as well as Chi-Wen. Although I think, do they have Adhara in their graveyard? Oh, they don't. Oh, so they did actually need to do that. Okay. Yeah, if they weren't on Chi-Wen, I mean, they could have just made a different level 8 Synchro. They could have made Despain. So, good draw for turn. I do still have the Springans Kitt, but I made a huge misplay here. That's so painful. I grabbed Branded Fusion completely by instinct, not even thinking about the fact that I do not have any Albazes left in my graveyard. If I actually would have grabbed Branded in white, I could have just made a Mirrorjade here. Like, banish these two, make Mirrorjade. And I will just banish this and attack for lethal. So that's brutal. That's really brutal. Just, like, don't ever be on autopilot. That's 100% what happened to me here. I was on autopilot. I'm like, oh, I'm searching with Kitt. Obviously, I'm going to grab Branded Fusion. Didn't even bother to check my graveyard and see that, again, both Albazes are in, well, graveyard and banished, and see both Albazes are in there. So this was an extremely winnable duel, and in fact, I had it. I just 100% threw right at the very end. So despite that, I do still think it was a good duel, like managing to play as far as we did through multiple Protos. So I'll go ahead and show it here anyway, but like, yeah, at this point I'm just going to fast forward, because I think I just wait for my opponent to basically show me lethal on their board before I finally concede. Now they get to wheel back their Protos, make the Cheng Ying here, banish for Protos to summon it, and then get rid of my Kitt, and then, yeah, they definitely have lethal on board. They have far more than lethal on board right now, but I'll just let them smack me, that's fine. So yeah, that was brutal. That was an extremely winnable duel that I just threw for literally zero reason. Well, again, the reason is that I wasn't paying attention, but that's an excuse, not a reason. So yeah, that's why you should definitely be paying attention, because you miss very winnable games like that. But we do have one more duel to show, so let's go straight into it here. And our final opponent is going to be on Branded Tearlament again, although this time they are on a 60-card build and not the 40-card build. That is actually one of those decks that I do think, because I was talking about Dragon Link relatively recently, about how it doesn't actually really benefit from being a 60-card grass deck. It should probably just be a 40-card regular deck. Branded Tearlament, I think, is actually an example of a deck that really benefits a whole lot from the grass, and I think should probably be a grass deck pretty much every single time. But we're going to get Maxx Seed here. That's definitely no fun. But I'll still just normal the Aluber for a Branded Fusion and pass. Mostly because I already have the Branded Banishment. If I didn't have that, I would be a little tempted to grab it here. But I already have it, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab the Branded Fusion here. My opponent's going to activate Branded Lost. I'm just going to go ahead and activate the Cartesia now, so that I can get that done before my opponent starts activating fusing effects. Looks like they're dropping a Scream as well before summoning a Merly. Alright, let's see if they end up milling here. Okay, looks like they did hit a Rhinoheart, which they are going to activate here. Rhinoheart is going to send a Tearlament's Grief, and then the Rhinoheart's going to activate its effect. I'm going to use Granganol here, and I'm actually going to use Granganol to grab myself a Despian Quaretits, because this deck in particular, there's a lot of boards that it makes where once I just drop everything's attack to 0, they won't be able to do too much. I guess not a lot, because they do use a lot of fusion monsters as well, but I'm also thinking about the fact that if they do try to remove the Quaretits, I have plenty of fuel in hand to fuse with the Albaz I grab. Actually, the more I think about it, maybe Perskinian would have been better here, but I think it's kind of comparable. I don't know. The reason I made Perskinian last time I utilized the Granganol effect was mostly because I didn't have the card in hand for Albaz if my opponent got rid of the Quaretits, so that's often the deciding factor. Not often, that's sometimes a deciding factor for me. Like, if I have the card to discard, if they remove the Quaretits, then I might grab the Quaretits, but if I don't, then I'll just get Perskinian. But here I think Perskinian might have been right anyway. What was definitely right was this Masquerade. I'm actually extremely glad I fused for this, because I'm going to get in a whole lot of damage against my opponent here with it. Yeah, we've already done it, what, 4 times? They've taken 2,400. Looks like Retribution is grabbing them back out Branded in red, that's fine. Albion is doing Albion things, that's also fine. Looks like opponent is going to battle over my Masquerade. Also summoned everything in defense mode here because of the Scream. In phase, I'll start to get hit by my opponent's Masquerade as I, begin to activate my effects as well. Cartesia might not have been necessary there, but we like her. We like young Cartesia, so we'll just go ahead and grab her back. I don't know why, but like, not even in videos, but just to myself when I was playing this deck, I just started calling Cartesia young Cartesia. I have no clue why, but it sounds right. It rolls off the tongue, so I might be utilizing that more often. Alright, so I'll activate my own Branded Fusion now. Opponent's going to chain the Branded in red. Mostly wanted to just force my opponent to do that so I didn't get slammed by a random Guardian Chimera or something else later. Turns out my opponent is actually going to go for a Masquerade here, or not Masquerade, the Mirrorjade with the Masquerade, and not a Guardian Chimera. But that's actually completely fine because I should be able to, I'm going to use Branded Fusion to go for an Albion line. Alright, Albion's effect is going to activate, as well as Branded Lost. I mainly wanted to use Branded Lost to grab Mercourier as soon as possible here for my opponent's Mirrorjade. Now that I have Mercourier in my hand, I can just go ahead and use Albion to make my own Mirrorjade. And this is completely fine. Now I'll activate Mirrorjade, opponent's going to chain theirs, but again, I have the Mercourier. It doesn't even matter if my opponent used priority to activate Masquerade, on the resolution of my own Mirrorjade summon, because then I still could just chain Mercourier and then chain my own Mirrorjade effect anyway, so it didn't matter what order that got activated in. Alright, gonna get back Lubellion here, mostly just to set up the Branded Beast on the field in case I need it, but I shouldn't. I do have Lethal here on board, even through my opponent's Tier Limits Scream. Alright, that's going to do it for these games. Thank you all very much for watching. Again, I don't profess to be the best Branded Despia player in the world, but hopefully I still gave a good showcasing of what the deck is capable of. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and move to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There, for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.